When we think of family, we often picture warmth, safety, and belonging. It's where many of us are taught we're supposed to feel most loved, most accepted, and most understood. But what happens when that very environment, the one that's supposed to nourish your growth, becomes the place that wounds you the most? Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, offered a radical and liberating insight. The family is not just a place of comfort, it is also the first psychological landscape where your soul is tested, and in many cases, it becomes the first battlefield. This may sound intense, even confrontational, but if you've grown up feeling like the emotional outsider in your own home, you know exactly what this means. In dysfunctional family systems, roles are rarely chosen, they're assigned. Often unconsciously. Maybe you were the sensitive one, the intuitive child, the quiet observer, and yet instead of being celebrated for these qualities, you were labeled too dramatic, too emotional, too serious, or simply too much. These labels don't just hurt in the moment, they shape your identity over time. Jung referred to this internalization of roles as complexes, unconscious patterns formed from repeated emotional experiences that become embedded in the psyche. But here's where the story begins to shift. Because according to Jungian psychology, your suffering doesn't mean you were weak. It may mean you were awake. Sensitive children in chaotic environments often become deeply attuned, not by choice but by necessity. You learned to read energy instead of words. You listened between the lines. You felt what others refused to say. That wasn't dysfunction, that was adaptation. Your nervous system became a radar for survival, and in a paradoxical way it also became the beginning of your spiritual path. You see, contrast is a spiritual teacher. Just as darkness reveals the value of light, emotional confusion reveals the hunger for inner clarity. For many people, the very experience of being misunderstood or dismissed within their family unit sparks a lifelong search for truth, meaning, and authenticity. This is no coincidence. In the face of rejection, your soul begins to look inward, not because you're weak, but because the outer world stopped making sense. And that's often the beginning of what Jung called the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. It starts in the rubble of the roles you never chose. It begins the moment you start to ask, who am I really beyond what I was told to be? Let's be clear. This doesn't mean blaming your family or resenting your past. This is not a crusade against parents, siblings, or caregivers. It's about reclaiming the narrative, recognizing that your early environment may have stifled your authenticity, but it also ignited your awakening. Jung never viewed trauma as the end. He viewed it as the beginning of deeper consciousness. A rupture, yes, but also an invitation. From a spiritual perspective, you may have been born into the exact environment your soul needed to evolve. That doesn't justify the pain, but it can help us transform it. Pain, when met with awareness, becomes a portal, and often that portal opens first within the home. The very place where we learned how to wear masks, suppress truth, and trade authenticity for acceptance. But what if the real task is not to fit in, but to see clearly? What if the tension you felt growing up, the sense that something was off, that you didn't belong, wasn't a defect but a signal? A signal that your soul was intact, even in the face of dysfunction. The family, then, becomes the first place where our true self is both hidden and waiting. Not to be rescued, but to be remembered. If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, the one who didn't quite fit in, who questioned too much, who felt too deeply, you might have spent years believing that something was wrong with you. Maybe you were told implicitly or explicitly that you were too emotional, too different, too rebellious. But from a Jungian perspective, what if this role wasn't a punishment, but a sacred assignment? Carl Jung taught that the parts of ourselves and our families that we refuse to acknowledge don't just disappear. They go underground into what he called the shadow, the hidden realm of the psyche that holds the emotions, truths, and potentials we deny. Every family, like every individual, has a shadow, and often that shadow needs somewhere to go, someone to carry it. That someone is usually the most conscious member of the system, the most awake. The one who sees what others pretend not to. That's where the black sheep comes in. In dysfunctional families, the black sheep is rarely the most troubled person. They are often the most aware. They're the ones who can feel the emotional tension in the room even when no words are spoken. They're the ones who ask inconvenient questions, challenge authority, and refuse to play along with unhealthy dynamics. In Jungian terms, this is the person carrying the family shadow. They're not the problem. They're the mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable, especially for those who don't want to look. But being the mirror is lonely work. It means being projected onto, blamed, criticized, even emotionally exiled. Why? Because it's easier to label one person as difficult than to face a collective truth. So the family says, "You're too sensitive." What they really mean is, "You're making us feel things we've buried for generations." This process, called scapegoating in psychology, serves a psychological function for the group. It keeps the illusion intact. But for the person at the center of that projection, it can be devastating. You may have grown up feeling like love was conditional, that belonging came with a price. Silence, conformity, dimming your light. But here's the deeper truth. If you were the one who refused to go along with the lie, then you weren't weak. You were ready. Ready to break the cycle, ready to be the first to see clearly, ready to hold what others couldn't even name. And this role, while painful, is also profoundly transformational. Because when you're the one who sees the truth, you're also the one who can change it. You can begin to step out of unconscious patterns. You can stop passing down shame, fear, and suppression. You become the pivot point, the turning place where history is interrupted and something new begins. Let's be clear, this doesn't mean you have to carry your family's healing on your back. You're not responsible for what others refuse to face, but you are capable of choosing a different path, capable of giving language to what was once unspeakable, capable of refusing to abandon yourself in order to be accepted. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And often, becoming who you truly are means standing apart, not out of rebellion, but out of integrity. The sacred outsider doesn't walk away from the family to reject love. They walk away to preserve truth, to reclaim their voice, and eventually to create a new kind of legacy. So if you've been carrying the family shadow, if you've felt the weight of being misunderstood, blamed, or emotionally cast out, know this: your experience isn't meaningless. It's meaningful, it's archetypal, and you're not alone. You were never meant to fit in, you were meant to see. And in seeing, you became the first in the family line to wake up. Once you begin to see through the roles you were assigned, the scapegoat, the peacekeeper, the invisible one, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to reclaim your identity. And the very first act of that reclamation is often the most misunderstood: setting boundaries. In toxic family systems, boundaries are rarely welcomed. They are often treated as insults, betrayals, or acts of defiance the moment you begin to say no, to assert your needs, to protect your energy. You might hear things like, "You've changed. You're being selfish. You think you're better than us." But let's be clear, setting a boundary is not an act of hatred. It is an act of clarity. It's not about rejecting your family, it's about refusing to reject yourself. Carl Jung's process of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole, demands that we differentiate from the collective, and for many of us, the first collective we must differentiate from is the family. Not to cut ties out of bitterness, but to restore connection to our own truth. You see, when you've spent years trying to be who others needed you to be, the helper, the fixer, the silent one, the act of defining where you end and others begin is revolutionary. And in many ways it's sacred, because boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They don't shut people out, they let you step back into yourself. Let's take a deeper look at why boundaries are so necessary, especially for those who grew up in emotionally chaotic homes. When love is conditional, based on compliance, silence, or sacrifice, the message you receive is clear. You don't get to have needs, you exist to serve ours, and over time you internalize that. You start to believe that taking care of yourself is selfish, that saying no is unloving, that having needs is shameful. But these beliefs are lies born of survival. And the act of healing is the process of replacing those lies with truth. Here's the truth. Your needs matter. Your energy matters. Your peace matters. And the people who truly love you will not be threatened by your boundaries. They will respect them. Even if it takes time, setting boundaries may mean disappointing people who are used to controlling you. It may mean stepping out of long-standing roles that once gave you a false sense of worth. It may mean walking away from conversations, relationships, or environments that drain your soul. But every time you choose authenticity over approval, you come home to yourself. And from that inner home, something new begins to take shape. You start to recognize that worth isn't something you have to earn, that love doesn't require abandonment of self, that silence isn't peace, it's suppression. You begin to live from a different place, a place of self-respect, rootedness, and sovereignty. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Setting boundaries is one way we bring the unconscious to light, not only in ourselves but in others. It interrupts generational patterns. It says, "This ends with me, not because I hate you, but because I love myself." And that kind of love, fierce, grounded, honest, is the very foundation for real healing. It's not loud. It doesn't need drama or justification. It simply says, "This is who I am, and this is what I need to remain whole." So if you're on this journey, if you've begun saying no to what no longer serves you, know that you are not betraying your family. You are honoring your soul. You are not abandoning love, you are returning to it on your own terms, because true love, for yourself and for others, begins where fear ends. Once you begin to reclaim your truth, through awareness, through boundaries, through the quiet but radical act of becoming yourself, something even more powerful starts to unfold. You begin to realize this isn't just about you. Your healing, your transformation, your awakening, they're not isolated events. They're part of a larger movement, a lineage shift, a turning point in your ancestral story. Carl Jung believed that the self, the deepest, most complete expression of who we are, only emerges after we confront the unconscious, not just our own, but also the collective unconscious passed down through generations. That means the patterns, beliefs, and emotional wounds we carry aren't all ours. Some were inherited, silently transferred from parent to child, unspoken but deeply felt. These patterns live in phrases like, "This is just how it is." We don't talk about that. That's not your place to question. But what if you are the first to question? What if you are the one who doesn't look away? What if your sensitivity, your clarity, your refusal to conform are not flaws, but signs that you are here to interrupt the pattern? This is what healing as legacy means, that by choosing to see what others denied, by doing the work they avoided, you become the bridge between what has been and what could be. You stop the transmission of pain by refusing to repeat it. You refuse to turn around and wound others the way you were wounded. You end the cycle not with rage or revenge, but with presence, with clarity, and with love. It's important to understand, this work is not about fixing your family. It's not about forcing reconciliation or changing people who aren't ready to face their own shadow. It's about owning your piece of the story and choosing differently from this moment forward. And what does that look like? It looks like naming what happened even when others won't. Letting go of guilt that was never yours to carry. Reclaiming joy even if your family taught you to fear it. Parenting your own inner child the way no one ever parented you. And eventually, it looks like becoming a lighthouse, not loud, not confrontational, just steady. A quiet beacon for those still lost in the storm. Because the more you embody your truth, the more you resonate with others who are ready to awaken too. You may never get the apology you deserve. You may never hear the words, "I see you, I'm sorry, you were right." But healing doesn't require their recognition. It requires your self-recognition. The moment you decide, "I am done abandoning myself to be accepted," that is the moment the chain breaks. You are not here to repeat dysfunction, you are here to end it. With intention, with tenderness, and with truth. And perhaps most profoundly, you are not healing in isolation. Even when it feels lonely, you are part of something much larger. There is a global reawakening happening, souls all over the world remembering who they are, reclaiming their voice and stepping out of generational shadow. You're not late, you're not broken. You are exactly on time. So take this in. Your pain was not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. And your healing is not just personal, it's ancestral. It echoes backward through your bloodline and forward into the lives of those who will come after you. And that, dear one, is what legacy really means. You've walked through fire, not just once, but repeatedly. Through emotional exile, through inner conflict, through the aching silence of feeling unseen in the place where you were supposed to feel most at home. And yet, you're still here. You're watching this because something in you knows this pain is not the end. It's the beginning of a return. Carl Jung taught that true healing does not mean becoming someone else. It means becoming who you've always been, beneath the roles, the wounds, and the conditioning. This is what he called individuation, not self-improvement, but self-remembering, a reunion with your essence. And this reunion is not a straight line. It's messy. It's cyclical. Some days you feel grounded, clear, powerful. Other days the past knocks on your door and asks if you're sure. That's not failure, that's integration. Integration is the process of making peace with your contradictions. It's standing in your wholeness without needing to erase your darkness. It's understanding that the shadow you carried didn't make you weak, it made you deep. That the family that couldn't see you didn't determine your worth. They simply couldn't recognize what they hadn't yet met in themselves. And most of all, integration means no longer waiting for the apology, no longer waiting for permission to be who you are, no longer waiting for the past to rewrite itself before you allow yourself to move forward. Because here's the truth no one may have told you. You don't need their recognition to be free. You don't need their love to love yourself. You don't need their acceptance to accept your wholeness. Wholeness is not perfection. It is the ability to hold every part of yourself. The grieving child, the angry teen, the guarded adult, and the awakening soul in the same embrace. And when that happens, something sacred unfolds. You stop seeking validation in the places that always denied it. You stop shrinking to fit into old dynamics that no longer reflect your truth. You stop proving and start being. And from that still, sovereign place inside, you begin to live. Not to survive, not to perform, but to be, freely, fiercely, and fully. So if you've come this far, if you've cried through the silence, if you've wrestled with guilt that wasn't yours, if you've laid awake wondering if you're too broken to be whole again, let this be your reminder. You were never broken, you were breaking open. Your journey has not delayed your purpose, it has refined it. You are not behind, you are arriving, now. The soul does not measure time the way the world does. It measures truth. And in this moment, your truth is radiant. Your awakening is not just a personal miracle. It's a ripple in the collective. You becoming whole helps all of us come home. So wherever you are on this path, whether just beginning or halfway through, remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Healing is not a race. Integration is not a finish line. It is a relationship with yourself, with your shadow, with your own unfolding. Honor the pace, honor the pauses, and honor the power of simply choosing to come back to yourself again and again, because that, dear soul, is the quiet revolution that changes everything. If this video touched you in any way, if it gave language to your journey, if it helped you feel less alone, or simply helped you breathe a little deeper, please like this video, subscribe to InnerRise Journey, and share it with someone else who might be walking through their own silent battle. Your presence matters. Your truth matters. And your journey, exactly as it is sacred. Thank you for being here. We're walking this path with you.